different than my lesson to you 5, because that's based on data. I am not giving the same instruction to everybody. I am using the data to design my lesson so that I meet the need of the students. So that data is a very positive thing that's coming out. In whose hands it's coming, that's a whole other story. The new area within blended learning that I'm looking into for my research is called student agency. And what that goes back again to is, who is in charge of the learning? Okay? Is it the teacher in charge of the learning, of student learning? Am I saying, you will learn what I tell you to learn? Or am I allowing some control to the students? Are the students in charge of their learning? Or is the teacher in charge of the student learning? If the teacher is in charge of the student learning, guess what? We're not going to have lifelong learning. That SDG-4 goal is gone. Okay? So if we want to come back, if we want to get focused on lifelong learning, we have to make sure that students also take charge of their own learning. How we do it, even we don't know, right? That's our area of research that we're working on. And then there's this whole idea of mastery-based progression, which I talked about a little bit, that if you are good on a certain topic, you can move ahead, even if it's not your grade level topic. But because it's digital content, it's online, it's easier to move on and progress based on your own expertise or mastery of the content. So how does it work if you wanted to do blended learning? Obviously, begin with a pilot. That's always a good idea. Begin with one classroom. If possible, set aside a lab space, all right? Let the student, for 1 period a day or half an hour a day, go into the lab, go through some online content, and then come to you in the class. Meanwhile, you have the data. And then you can look at the data and say, okay, I think via the computer, you've mastered these things, but you still need to work on these things, okay? And then there's the whole flipped classroom model that goes with it, but we won't get into that right now. And then you can rotate through the lab twice a week, 1 day for math or twice a day, depending upon the time you have, and 1 day for English. And this way you can start bringing in this literacy, math skill, all of those things together. What are the advantages? Your instruction is always going to be aligned to the learning goals and the needs of the student, okay? The pace is varied. The speed at which you're going on a particular topic depends upon the needs of the students. And we, as educators, get data from student performance so that we can tailor our instruction accordingly. And if you would like, parents can also have access to this data really quickly. The but questions. Yeah, I like this. Yes, I know it's God promise. Yes, I know it helps student learning. But where does the money come from? Okay? How do we know what good content is out there? And how do I get my teachers ready? Okay. Funding. There are a lot of US companies that would be so happy if you guys came and said, we want to do something like this in 10 schools in Nigeria. They'll be more than happy to come and help fund something like that, okay? So I would strongly encourage you that if technology is your only stumbling block, there are solutions and there are resources available for that. There are also alternatives to actually having good internet access. I went to Tajikistan a few years ago, and so you know, it used to be part of the Soviet Union, and now it's no longer part of the Soviet Union, it's on its own. And when the Soviet Union left, it of course took away all the resources and all the money in education. The typical story, the teachers don't have enough salaries, the teachers have to do 4 jobs just to make ends meet. You know, it's the same story that we get to hear in a lot of different countries. And so they really wanted to, I went in because they said, we really want to do blended learning. After 2 weeks, I left having actually come up with a strategy to do blended teacher training. So not even blended learning for the students. As we started discussing, they're like, wait. First, let's do this for the teachers before we actually do it for the students, right? So those are all things that are possible to take place. There are some very basic strategies that you can do blended learning with flip phones. Literally, you don't need fast internet access. You can do blended learning activities with flip phones. Simple example. There was an organization that went to Pakistan, and they did this educational program for nurses, where nurses, every day that they would go in the hospital after they finished their preliminary training, every morning they would get a quiz on their flip phones. as a text message. Okay, 10 questions, and they would get another set of 10 questions at the end of the day. And they would just have to, like, through their buttons on the phone, select. It's multiple choice, and they would have to select the answer. The data goes to the people who are organizing this and leading it, and then based on that, they then deliver them. They're collecting their data so that 3 months later, when they meet again for professional development, they can do that. So there are some low-cost, low-tech options and solutions that are also available in addition to high-tech options. And by the way, let me tell you, technology cost is becoming cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, right? How much does a Chromebook cost? $250, which is much, much, much cheaper than even initially when the computers used to cost $1,000 and $1,500, right? Reevaluate the reliance of textbooks. In the US, we've started doing this. And as Dr. Yildiz pointed out as well, honestly, these textbooks cost the schools $60, $70, $80 a book, if you're lucky, maybe even more. If you just take away that money, you're able to fund your Chromebooks for all your students there. So there's ways of going about doing this. And grants, as I mentioned, there's lots and lots of companies that are willing to actually invest in education, technology for education. Curriculum, there's a lot of curriculum out there. It depends upon what your needs are, whether you want to really go into language, English language. Do you want to focus on literacy? Do you want to focus on math? What is the content area that you want to focus on? And I think I will end there. Any questions?
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Frizzell. We'd like to move forward to the program and remain your question, and we're going to open up for question later. So our next speaker is Mr. Brumsick Brendan, and he's the district-wide science chairperson at Westbury Public School District on Long Island. So he's going to talk about making a huge impact on a small area of the globe. And by the way, he has 4 schools in Ghana, I think.
Thank you. Kwaba. As soon as you land in Ghana, you see this word everywhere, printed on the walls. You hear people telling you this, saying this to you, but most importantly, you feel it. It means welcome. Where did this love affair I have for Ghana come from? Well, about 15 years ago, I attended a Super Bowl party. And there's a gentleman there discussing a school that he had opened in Ghana. And I was fascinated. He told me how he had opened it, and as an African American, I immediately just wanted to know more and more about it. And I asked him, what can I do? What do you need? He said, everything. And I said, I got you. So to give you, oops, pressed the wrong one. Yeah, here we go. The way in which the school was opened was, it was a collaboration between Huawei, the Rockefeller Foundation, and my now good friend Don Felder, who's a philanthropist. Huawei is the Forum for African Women Educationalists. This was the Forum for African Women Educationalists is a Pan-African NGO founded in 1992 by 5 women ministers of education. Vida was one of them, and she was the Minister of Education in Ghana. Sadly, she passed away about a dozen years ago. But her dream and her vision still lives. And here's the school. But this is the school in 2002. To give you a little geography, the school is located in an area called Obadan, which is just north of Accra in Ghana. Give you a little bit about Ghana. 48% of the age-appropriate children are enrolled in secondary school. 77% of the entire population is considered literate, but that's more so you'd find in the larger cities like Kumasi and Accra. And 28% of the primary children will drop out before completing secondary school. This gives you an idea of what the educational structure looks like, which was common, in West Africa. Education is compulsory until Form 3 or about grade 9. And if you want any more information, this is a great website. To give you a little information about Obadan. Obadan's a rural village in the hills, like I said, in eastern region of Ghana. Many of the homes are made of mud, but you find cinder block homes. Cooking is often done with firewood. Water has to be fetched. Transportation is usually by trotro, or what we call in New York, dollar van. And in this area of Ghana, most of the employment is in the pineapple fields in the area of Obadan, in the hills of Ghana. The girls, usually at, like I said, Form 3, or age about 13 or 14, usually go to work, or they marry. And they go to work to support the families. The philosophy of our school is education now, work and marriage later. One of the things that we realized is that we got to focus on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, all right, anytime that you're developing a school. And as you can see at the base of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we are talking about water, food, air, shelter. So in developing the school, I got the students in my school district involved, all right? And the students in my school district actually raised money for tuition, because after they go into senior high school, there is a fee, there is tuition. They raise money for soccer uniforms, feminine products. It's a girls' high school. And without this, many times girls miss a quarter of the school year. They also raise money for water, for a water tank, all right? And these are the students in Westbury. Now, our school district is a high-need school district for New York, all right? As a matter of fact, I think we're rated as the 4th neediest district in New York State, even though we are located on Long Island. And village of Pokrum, which is next to Obadan. And the clinic does provide services for the people, but there was one problem. After they leave the clinic, they're standing on the side of the road, hot sun, rain during the rainy season, waiting for the trotro, which doesn't have a regular schedule either. So the students raised money to build a shelter for the people in Obadan. We realized that if we address Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if we address the needs of the people, maybe the girls would not be forced to go to work or marry. Maybe they could focus on schools. So friends, family, co-workers often donate clothing and toiletries so we can take that to Ghana, to this village of Obadan. School districts will donate a whole lot, all right? They often change educational programs, and when they do, they have textbooks that often go into the dumpster. They have tons of supplies that often go unused. When I first arrived to Obadan, they opened the closet, and inside the closet, there was about 3 test tubes, a graduated cylinder, and a flask, and that was what they had for science equipment. I promised them that I would take care of that, and as the science director at the school district, we did take care of that. Technology, you asked about technology in different parts of the world. We now support 4 schools in Ghana. You asked about the technology. One of the schools we visited had, the technology was a diagram of a keyboard on a mud wall painted black. That was the extent of the technology. That particular school right now has a smart board, all right? So we were able to get things for that also. And as far as the basics, as far as a chalkboard is concerned, many of the schools, their chalkboard was black paint on a mud wall, which was very hard to read. We moved from chalkboards to whiteboards to smart boards, and we were able to actually transport a ton of our chalkboards to the various schools in Ghana. Another resource we found was the Bruderhof community. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of them. It's a religious community in upstate New York. Oftentimes people equate them with the Amish. They're pretty traditional. And I happen to know one of the head people there. And I'd mentioned the work that I was doing in Ghana. And he said, what can I do? And I said, I mentioned that the elementary schools had complained that we'd just been focusing on our girls' high school, our girls' senior high school. And they asked for a playground. He said, we'll give you one. Not only did he give us 2 playgrounds, but he also sent 3 carpenters to install them, so the community had. It's very interesting. The children in Obadon had never seen a playground before. And when we showed them how to use a swing and stuff like that, everybody was coming from all the communities. And the children actually came up with a strategy to allow each person to use it. And they swung 5 times, they got off, and they left it. And it wasn't us, the children actually did this. Now, how do we do this? Well, in the past, what we did was we collected a lot of material. And there are so many resources out there to get these materials from. Universities, all the school districts, many places are eager to share, all right, and to give. We personally, now this whole effort it's the fellas, it's my buddies, we do this. We would collect the material from the various locations, we put them on a container, ship it to Ghana, it goes to port, and then a truck would carry it over to the school. Unfortunately, about 5 or 6 years ago, we ran into some difficulty getting the materials out of port. We may have some ways to help with that, but this is probably the best way of doing it. What we've done for the past 5 or 6 years was we've actually go there, we found out what they needed, and we would raise funds since we were having so much difficulty at the port. Well, here's our school. It's a school for girls, all right, and we started off with 22 girls. These are our graduates. This community now has probably the first high school female graduates, college graduates, and now we have a number of students in graduate school. Here you go. Here's my buddy Don, and 4 of our graduates. The 2 on the end are now teachers, all right? And the 2 in the middle are in technology. I forgot exactly. One is a nurse, and the other one is a technologist. And yeah, they're all doing very well, and they're giving back to the community. It's not like they went into Accra and just stayed there. They're giving back to the community. They're working with the community, which is something that's really important in our mission. This is a student that I supported, and she's now become a technologist. And I supported her from high school all the way through. Mother almost passed away, and it was amazing that with just $250 for medical fees, they were able to save her life. But they they just keep in touch with you, and they let you know exactly what's needed, and and you help whenever you can. Well, here's the school now. All right, this is the Nsaba Diaspora Senior Girls High School. It now has paved roads, all right, not only at the school, but within the village, and we now have a population of 761 girls. We went there, right, thank you. We visited in February, and we were shocked. brought to tears. The government stepped in. The government had expanded the school for all the students, for the extra students. We raised more money for another water tank, so my students also here in New York remain in contact with the girls. So I have the students that are involved, the students at the school in Ghana. They communicate with ours. We have pen pal things going on. We're hoping to get to WhatsApp and all these other things, but we're getting there. And this is our expanded school. And one of the things what I do tell people, because I think my purpose here was to express how everybody could do something, and you could be very successful with it. And I have a lot of colleagues and friends that travel to various places all over the world, and I often tell them to go beyond those walls of the all-inclusive locations that they go to when they do travel, and see what the real world is like out there, and see what the needs are, all right? And they can make a difference, they truly can make a difference. So, like I said, my purpose, I think, was to demonstrate how everyone can do it. There are tens of thousands, if not millions, of communities out there that could use assistance. You can very easily adopt one. If you just go beyond that wall and take a ride in,